Hey, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up? A gracious good morning to you, good people. It's your girl KB. You know what I do and you know why I do it. It's Thursday, it's June 11th, and it is 3:17 in the a.m. My first video of the day was talking about praise and worship. You know, how I grew up, you know, the pageantry of it all. And in conjunction with that, I spoke on being a New Yorker and always a Knicks fan. Okay? We're clear? All right. That being said, a lot of folks don't know the team's real name and the team's nod to in their name. This is the part I don't like. The Knicks history, okay? Love the team. Love the basketball history. But let's get into the team name. It is the New York Knickerbockers. We cut it short to Knicks. Okay. The team name is a nod to the Dutch. It's basically a tribute to the Dutch folks, Dutch settlers. And why I don't like this part of the history is because I know that the Dutch were prolific colonizers. Oh yeah. It's funny, you know, I'd pretty much forgotten until, you know, earlier this week about the full name. And I remember seeing the deed for my mom's house when we lived in New York. The land was owned by a Dutch holding company. You know, it had all the history of the property. The house wasn't built until, I want to say, the 30s maybe, but the land itself, the history of that, was owned by the Dutch. Now, the neighborhood that I grew up in, so many years later, was an all Polish neighborhood. My mother, I nicknamed her Julia. You have to go back to the old television show with Diane Carroll. My mother was one of maybe 4 or 5 black RNs in the hospital that she worked in. And on some levels, she was progressive in that, you know, she stood on her own. And maybe I won't say progressive in a feminist sense, you know, because my father wasn't about. Let's just say my father, I think she fell in love with the bad boy, and he proved to be all bad for a very long period of time. So my mother was progressive in her thinking, and nobody could tell her what to do because she had parents that empowered her. Although, you know, they had strict rules. You're going to be this, you know, because they knew the value of education. My grandfather was functionally illiterate. So, he learned things the hard way, but he understood the value. My grandmother, she was a high school graduate. Now, her sisters went on to become teachers and things. And these were her older sisters. But because she married young, she didn't go on, but she was brilliant. I wish she had of, because she was an amazing writer. She taught my grandfather how to read, so kudos to grandma. And, they stressed education because they knew it opened doors. But the Dutch, man, yeah, so I'm appreciative of the fact that the Knicks are referred to as the Knicks, to kind of move away from the process of, that history of colonization. Although now that I'm talking about it, I still think of, in the back of my mind, it's triggered the thought of the gladiator games. Most of sporting events in sporting institutions capitalize on, I believe it was a tradition started in the South, and they referred to them as buck games or buck breaking and, things of this nature. And it was some foul stuff that went along with that. And I believe organized sports is still attached to the buck breaking traditions. That's just my thoughts. And I know some of you are going to immediately run to Google to hit up the term buck breaking. Now, usually refers or makes reference to animals, but you have to look at it in the context of the Old South and Southern traditions, and what buck breaking really means in the context of slavery. So that's the downside of the history of the New York Knickerbockers.